Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Village President and Board of Trustees of the Village of Burr Ridge. It is April 27th. Our first order of business, of course, is the Pledge of Allegiance. And tonight we are going to be led by Ms. Parker Murphy from Elm School. And I'm going to read a little bio about you first. Now, Parker is a fifth grade student at Elm School. Her favorite subject in school is creative writing. She is a member of the Elm School Choir and Drama Club. Parker is an accomplished musician. At age 9, she wrote and produced her first original 5-song CD. She sings, plays the guitar and the piano. And this year, Parker will be performing the national anthem at the Burr Ridge 5K, the Right Fit one, on May 30th or thereabouts, for the 4th year in a row. You might recognize her from that. She will also be performing the national anthem on July 4th on the Navistar stage at Rib Fests for the 4th year in a row. She's performed in Nashville and hopes to someday move to pursue her dream of becoming a recording artist. Parker also enjoys acting and will be in the Stage Door Fine Arts spring production of the musical Aladdin at the Hinsdale Community Center. She has a younger brother, Finn, who is here today, who is in first grade at Elm School. And her pets include 2 Victorian bulldogs, Layla and Jessie, as well as several fish. This fall, Parker will travel to Guatemala with her dad to help build schools for students in need. She's here with her mother today, Paula Murphy, who will be a trustee for the village in May. And unfortunately, though, her dad couldn't make it tonight. But Parker, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For all. Thank you.
Thank you, Parker. Nice job. Karen, may I have roll call, please?
Trustee Francis.
Here.
Trustee Grasso.
Here.
Trustee Pavesa.
Here.
Trustee Bolus.
Here.
Trustee Ruzak.
Here.
Trustee Maneri. Mayor Straub.
Here. Our first line of work, business here, of course, is the audience portion. Are there any members of the audience? I'd like to address the board. Doris?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Dolores Cizek, former trustee, presently in LaGrange. There are 2 things that I would like to bring up. The second item I will bring up later. First of all, according to the article that ran in the doings of April 16th, the village administrator considers that the village has a balanced budget. Now, I'm not a CPA, but we had a business in Hinsdale for over 40 years, and I did all the bookkeeping, profit and loss, asset and liability, everything. And it seems to me that when the expenditures exceed the revenue, you do not have a balanced budget. You have a deficit. And this village has a deficit of $800,000. It is dishonest to say that this is a balanced budget. There were funds taken from other funds. That's how you call it a balanced budget.
We disagree with you, Dolores, but that's okay. Go ahead.
Well, the revenue is $17.3 million, and the expenditures are $18.1 million. That's an $800,000 shortfall. Now, the other item I want to mention briefly, I see that under 11B, in closed session, there will be an evaluation of the village administrator. And I'd just like to remind the board members that our village administrator is paid more than a U.S. congressman. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolores. Are there any other members of the audience that would like to address the board? Marty?
I'm Marty Gleason.
I live at 80th and County Line Road. I'm a Democrat, a Notre Dame fan, and I'm such a fan, they are giving me an award called the Domer of the Year because I will be attending my 57th consecutive Rock Me event on May 8th at the Hyatt Regency. Lots of my friends have been calling me from around the country when they found out, and they wonder, what's a domer? Well, this is the dome at Notre Dame. If you see it, it towers over the whole campus. And on top of that is the lady on the dome. And that's where the name Notre Dame in French means Our Lady, and that's what Notre Dame is. So if any of you have a lot of money and want to go to the Hyatt Regency and bow and scrape to me, you can join in on the fun. It's got to be fun because I've been hearing from friends all over the country who found out about it, and you cannot imagine what great senses of humor they have. I gave the mayor a copy of the main reason I do this. We have 85 students currently at Notre Dame on some of their scholarship money comes from the Notre Dame Club of Chicago and the events we sponsor. I gave him a copy about Charlie Roth, who in 1997 was awarded a scholarship. And that explains in great detail and better than I could ever say what it's all about. He's one of our scholarship kids who has gone to the Peace Corps, taught in New York City, and he's going with his family. His wife's a Notre Damer, and they are going to go to the Dominican Republic to teach math for the next few years. It's a really invigorating story. Thank you very much for letting me talk about things that have nothing to do with Burr Ridge, except for the Notre Dame people who live here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Marty. Is there anyone else that would like to address the audience, I'm sorry, the board at this time? Okay. I'll move on to the consent agenda, or the omnibus vote. All items listed with an asterisk are considered a routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda. First, the minutes, 5A, approval of regular board meeting of April 13th, 2015. Under considerations, we have 8D, approval of recommendation to relocate and upgrade wireless network connection at the corner of County Line Road and Plainfield. 8E, approval of recommendation to approve the fiscal year 15-16 pay plan and salary increases for non-union employees. 8F, approval of recommendation to purchase a water department line locator. And 8G, approval of vendor list in the amount of $305,095.99 for all funds, plus $196,967.27 for payroll, for a grand total of $502,063.26, which includes a special expenditure of $15,520 to Pleasant View Fire Protection District out of the E911 fund for the 911 system dispatch equipment. May I have a motion to approve minutes under 5A, considerations 8D, 8E, 8F, 8, and 8G?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
May I have a second? Second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Francis?
Yes?
Trustee Ruzak?
Yes.
Trustee Bolus?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Grasso?
Yes.
5-0.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. We are on to the, under ordinances. 6A, consideration of an ordinance amending the Burr Ridge Municipal Code by adding a new Chapter 15 entitled Cable and Video Customer Service and Privacy Protection.
Right, we have two items on the agenda tonight to deal with our renewal of our franchise agreement with Comcast Cable of Illinois. Item 6A and item 7A. Before we take on the franchise agreement, we do need to approve this ordinance. We have in the audience this evening Greg Smith from Kleinthorpe and Jenkins, who was our attorney, who represented Willowbrook, Burr Ridge, Hinsdale, and Clarendon Hills in negotiations with Comcast. I think this is the third time that we've renewed our franchise agreement, each time with somebody different. But now it's Comcast. And Greg's going to tell us a little bit about the background of this, and explain why we need to approve this ordinance before the resolution approving the franchise agreement. Greg?
Yep, thank you, Steve. As Steve said, my name is Greg Smith. I'm from the Village Attorney's Office of Kleinthorpe and Jenkins. Thank you for having me here this evening and for the opportunity to speak with you. I work on many municipal law issues with Kleinthorpe, including cable franchise issues. As Steve said, your current agreement with Comcast is up for renewal. It formally expires in May, so about every 10 to 15 years, depending on the term of the agreement, these issues come back before you. Under state and federal law, Comcast is allowed to put their cable and boxes in your rights-of-way in exchange for giving the village 5% of its gross revenues. And the way that they lock in their obligations and the way that the village allows them to go into their right-of-way is through a contract known as a franchise agreement. As Steve said, here we had some economies of scale. I negotiated renewal agreements for Hinsdale, Willowbrook, Burr Ridge, and Clarendon Hills all at once with Comcast. That had the effect of splitting the costs of negotiation out amongst those 4 communities. Now, the agreement before you tonight for approval is different from what you've seen in the past. Previously, Comcast and its predecessors were more willing to do things like scholarships, donations of equipment, and things along those lines. However, with consolidation in the cable television market, there are fewer and fewer options available for consumers these days, and Comcast behaves much more like a utility than ever before. Comcast, in none of the negotiations I participated in over the last 5 years, has agreed to things like scholarships or free equipment. It's something that they have decided as a company they're no longer interested in doing. The agreement that's before you is the product of a lot of negotiation, first with the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, which I was a part of, and then again on behalf of the consortium of 4 villages here. I would like to take you through the highlights of the franchise agreement briefly and then explain to you why you have 2 items for action this evening. First of all, the agreement is for a period of 10 years. 10 years is standard for these agreements. As I said before, the agreement allows Comcast to put their equipment in your rights of way, but in exchange, they give you 5% of their gross revenues as a tax or a fee. It's called a franchise fee for the use of the rights of way. They're required under state law and do provide complimentary service to each eligible village building. There's a state law that requires that. And then they're also held to certain customer service standards, which relates to the first action item on your agenda related to cable television. Under this state law, it is the Cable and Video Consumer Protection Law. If Comcast has outages that last a certain length of time, if they have appointments scheduled but fail to meet them, and the village receives complaints, the village may actually prosecute violations of those standards if you choose to do so. So the first ordinance that you would, or the first item related to cable TV that you would take action on tonight will give you the authority, if you want to use it, to enforce these minimum standards for cable and video service providers. Finally, with regard to the agreement, Comcast will be required to continue to provide the one PEG channel, public, educational, and governmental channel, to the village. And if the village requests a second channel, there is a system by which Comcast has to create that within 180 days, and the village could then provide additional programming. If the board has any questions at this time, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, the first step you would take tonight would be to approve an ordinance for the customer service standards, and the second step would be to approve the resolution authorizing the franchise agreement, the contract to be entered into between the village and Comcast, which would renew the 10-year relationship, a 10-year relationship between the two.
Any questions of the board?
Go ahead.
Russell?
There are times when our electricity goes out, and sometimes it's more frequented in certain areas, even if it is prompted by a storm. Is that true with Comcast and cable also? Not that we can't live without cable television, but when we say that we have to be forgiving in terms of storms or forces du jour, or whatever we call it, majeure, is that a case with cable television? Do you have to worry about certain areas of the viewing?
Right.
Karen?
Under the franchise agreement, Comcast is given latitude, and it's also under federal and state law for acts of God, force majeure type acts, because they take the position, and it is written into the law, that if a flood or an earthquake or lightning strike were to affect their equipment, they're given a reasonable time to cure. Now, if everything is back online and it has been an unreasonable length of time, there are options to go out and force them to repair their infrastructure more quickly. But it's measured on a reasonableness standard.
I understand that. I'm just wondering if you have any knowledge of certain dead spots or areas that are prone to go out of service.
No, I'm not familiar with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. By adopting the, as you called it, the privacy protection, consumer privacy protection, are we now telling residents to call the village and complain rather than calling Comcast?
The residents have always had the opportunity to contact the village as the entity with which Comcast has a contract to put their equipment in. It's up to the village as a matter of policy if you want to advertise to the residents their ability to have the village be a mediator or an arbitrator of disputes. I find in certain communities that Comcast is not as responsive as residents would expect, so they do turn to the village in that case. By adopting this ordinance, you'd at least have that tool in your toolbox.
Do you find villages aggregate the complaints, like when they get maybe 15 or 20 of them and then they do something about it?
Typically, yes, because the amount of work to prosecute a violation of the standards is somewhat significant, and so it would be rare for a village to take one isolated complaint and move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and to be fair, Comcast, I believe, has been fairly responsive in the last several years to complaints, and we don't get a lot of complaints, but the ones I do get, when I call our representative, they follow up, and I usually get a response, and the residents get a response within a reasonable period. Not to say that there are not issues out there, there are, but I think relatively speaking, they do a pretty good job, and probably better than they used to.
I think it's good that residents now have a recourse, rather than just calling the 1-800 Comcast number and
That's right.
being on hold forever.
The goal of this service standard law is to have a place for residents to go other than a circuit court to try to get some kind of action out of a cable and service provider. So they would have that option.
Good.
Trustee Francis?
Yes, thank you. Is the 5% franchise fee, is that the norm throughout the Chicago metropolitan area, and is there a certain range that's typical?
That percentage is set by federal law as a ceiling on which the rate can be. So there's no deviation from that across the country. The franchise agreement is written that in the unlikely event that the 5% cap in federal law is raised, this franchise agreement would incorporate that greater percentage. However, the cable industry has well-paid lobbyists who are trying to push against those kinds of changes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
One more
Trustee
thing, on
Wells.
my wish list is to bury all electric and Comcast cables. Can I hope that Comcast feels the same way, and that's sort of an objective for the future to beautify our communities?
As Mr. Stricker could tell you, we sat in the conference room on the other side of this wall with the managers from the 4 communities and with Comcast, and we hashed out the undergrounding issue at some length. And every one of these, and I've done about a dozen of these renewals now, the same issues have been raised. And Comcast takes the position that if there are overhead lines available, that they want to be able to put their equipment on them. But as soon as those poles come down, then they will go underground with everyone else. Comcast said that they don't own any poles in this area. So Comcast is not installing new above-ground poles.
But the poles are used by ComEd,
Typically, the electric company is
so
the
of course
one
they
that
will
owns them.
renew, they will put up the poles.
So the strategy would be to get the electric company to go underground, and then the cable will follow. However, Comcast would not agree to go underground in the event that there was a pole available to hang their wires from. And we did talk about that issue, and without fail, they've always refused to change from that.
And this isn't anything that you can go to another cable provider and hope that they would do it to get the contract, or?
There really hasn't been much interest in competition amongst the few cable providers that there are to try to create competition on those grounds,
Next year.
hopefully.
Well, they would do the same thing. They would put their cables up where they could, obviously, to keep the cost down. Fortunately.
Trustee Ruzak?
Diane mentioned being put on hold. I know there's a lot of residents that get so aggravating about being put on hold. Is there any way to put a time limit on it, or say that you have to answer within 5 minutes or so instead of sitting on the phone for 15, 20 minutes?
The state law isn't as concerned with hold times as with appointments being made and canceled and services being out for a certain length of time. But I think if complaints were received, that Mr. Stricker could work with his counterpart at Comcast. They have a government affairs manager. It's someone whose job is to interface with villages. I think Mr. Stricker could be a liaison with Comcast on an issue like that.
Thank you. Steve, you're getting a lot of calls.
Okay. Anything else? Well, Ray, thank you for your presentation. I have a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Under ordinances, 6A, consideration of an ordinance amending the Burr Ridge Municipal Code by adding a new Chapter 15 entitled Cable and Video Customer Service and Privacy Protection.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Grasso.
Yes.
Trustee Ruzak.
Yes.
Trustee Bolus.
Yes.
Trustee Paveza.
Yes.
Trustee Francis.
Yes.
5-0.
May I also have a motion to approve under resolution 7A, consideration of a resolution approving a cable television franchise agreement by and between the Village of Burr Ridge and Comcast of Illinois, 6 LLC.
So moved.
Second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Grasso.
Yes.
Trustee Ruzak.
Yes.
Trustee Bolus.
Yes.
Trustee Paveza.
Yes.
Trustee Francis.
Yes.
5-0.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. Now we're under considerations. We have a special presentation this evening. We are going to be honoring other members of the village and the outgoing board member at a recognition dinner coming up in June. But tonight we have a special recognition for Leonard Ruzak, and it's under 8A, presentation of proclamation honoring former village president and trustee Leonard Ruzak. I'm going to ask Len to join me in the front with the microphone, and to read. I'll be reading this proclamation and trying to embarrass you sufficiently. But this is quite a lifetime achievement award. Actually, you've been serving the village almost as long as I've been alive.
Thanks a lot.
If you'll join me up front.
He's waved.
I'll ask his lovely bride to join us also.
The ears?
Okay. Now, ironically, I'm not the last A proclamation recognizing Leonard J. Ruzak as an invaluable citizen of Burr Ridge and longtime contributor in making Burr Ridge a very special place. Whereas Burr Ridge resident Leonard J. Ruzak has been a longtime dedicated member of many of the village's boards and committees. And whereas Mr. Ruzak was elected to serve 3 terms as trustee from 1961 to 1969 and again from 2011 to 2015. Whereas Mr. Ruzak was appointed to serve as village president in the summer of 1968 and was elected for 3 consecutive terms from 1969 to 1981, the only one that holds that record, by the way, in consecutive terms. Whereas Mr. Ruzak has served as a committee member and chair of the Veterans Memorial Committee and has served tirelessly on many village board committees, plan commission, board of local improvements, street policy, economic development, space needs, public safety, and 50th anniversary committee. And whereas many changes have taken place within the village during Mr. Ruzak's 54-year tenure, the naming of the village as Burr Ridge from Harvester, creation of the police and public works departments, formation of the Burr Ridge Park District Police Pension Fund, Board of Fire and Police Commissioners, development of the Bridewell Prison Farm, annexation of the Pleasantdale area, acquisition of Lake Michigan Water, beginning of the annual tree planting program, and development of many of Burr Ridge's residential subdivisions. And whereas Mr. Ruzak's many years of hard work, volunteerism, and dedication to the community has made him well-known and respected throughout the community. And whereas the Veterans Committee and Veterans Memorial Committee begun under Mr. Ruzak's leadership continues to be essential in the remembrance and honoring of veterans of our community and the country. And whereas Mr. Ruzak's dedication, volunteerism, and forward vision for the village and community has set forth a standard within the village that cannot be matched. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the village of Burr Ridge, Cook and DuPage Counties, Illinois, extends to Leonard J. Ruzak individually, collectively, and with great pride their sincere appreciation for his long-time efforts in continuing to make Burr Ridge a very special place. By the Board of Trustees and approved by the Mayor of the Village of Burr Ridge, I'd like to give you this award. I'm going to ask your friend Jack Schaus to make a couple comments first. He has to come here. He has to make a few special comments because he's been with you, most of those steps along the way. And Jack Schaus.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for having this opportunity. I've known Len for a number of years, and he's a very important person to Burr Ridge. I met Len, I'll tell you a little story. I met Len, no, not that story. I met Len in 1976, 77. And at that time, I was part of Pleasantdale. And Pleasantdale surrounded the property around the farm, about 200-300 acres. And the Pleasantdale area was unincorporated, and they knew at that time that they had to incorporate someplace. So I had the opportunity as president of the Pleasantdale Homeowners Association to arrange to get together with 4 communities that were in the area so that the people could find out what is being offered. There were 4 communities in Headed Park, Willow Springs, Burr Ridge, and of course Countryside. One of the villages just wasn't quite as interested. They gave some views, but they obviously weren't interested in incorporating. The other 2 very strongly wanted to convince the people of Pleasantdale that they were the village to join. In fact, one of the villages used some high political power. And at that one meeting that he was at, he almost insisted that the people of Pleasantdale join so that they can be part of what he thought was the best village. Well, then Len Ruzak came by, and Len presented. At that time, he was only over 300 people. Right. So he presented to the people at the meeting, which was about 150 people, and he was very well prepared. He told the advantages of the sewers and water and police. He also told the philosophy that Burr Ridge has. And afterwards, of course, he answered the questions. And as you know, in a group of 150 people with that kind of interest, there was a lot of sharp questions and angered and everything else. But Len handled himself in a very gentlemanly way and with real class. And I think that got through. Well, to make a long story short, we had the referendum. And I remember the day before thinking, you know, Len presented himself great, but he didn't push, he didn't sell, he was very prepared. And well, the referendum was passed. And in talking to some of the people, asked them why they wanted Burr Ridge. And they said, well, and Len seemed so sincere. He didn't go overboard. He always answered all the questions he could, and those that he couldn't, he didn't argue any points. But he, in talking to their fellow neighbors, they said, this is the outfit we want to go to. We want to join it. And today, that whole area now is part of downtown, beautiful restaurants and business places, condominiums, and very happy people. We can have a lot of fun. So thank you, Lynn. You know, Lynn Ruzek is part of her ridge. But best than that, her ridge is part of Lynn Ruzek. Congratulations.
I just want to thank all the residents for giving me the opportunity to play a small part in making Burr Ridge a very special place. And I have to thank my wife for the first 20 years doing a lot of the typing because we didn't have a village manager at that time. And thank you for all. I really appreciate it. It was great education.
Thanks, Len.
And to make, and it may just be, you know, kind of reasonable and customary, but may I have an official vote, a motion to approve on the considerations 8A to give this proclamation to Len Ruzek?
So moved.
Second?
Second. Third.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Len.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ruzek. Now you got to take down your wedding picture and put that back.
Okay, Len, back to work for your final. By the way, this is Len's final meeting. And under considerations, presentation of redesign of the village website. Jerry?
Good evening. We're going to give you a preview of our new website we're rolling out. Past fiscal year, the staff has undertook a website redesign project. The project was a complete overhaul of the village's current website. The project was to resolve several issues with the current site and provide the benefits of a fresh new site for both the public and the village staff. The redesigned site has been developed in a product called WordPress. It's a popular free and open source web design software. It's easy to train on and easy to use. It's used extensively by corporations and organizations, CNN, Best Buy, eBay, Sony, Xerox, just to name a few. It has a content management system, which means staff can be trained and join in to maintain and update the site. It's a very flexible platform, which will help us for future development and enhancements. This is called the Plugin Architect. These are pre-made programs that we can add whenever we need certain features and functionality of the system. And the new website was developed completely in-house without the use of consulting services, and it'll be available this week for the public. Our current site, some of the limitations and issues with it. It was developed in Adobe Dreamweaver, which is a powerful program, but very complicated to learn and hard to maintain. And over the years, our site has devolved by adding content. Homepage has become cluttered, and various site pages as we add content. Also, areas of the site have become lumped together, not really logically organized, and it just takes too many clicks and tabs to locate information. This all leads to a difficulty in navigation, hard to find information, not very user-friendly, and then the content management strategy to keep the information current is lacking. So this was the need for an update and a fresh new look. So our new web design that we updated, very streamlined, cleaner look. It's more user-friendly. It's device responsive. That means it's mobile friendly. So, customized to be viewing in smartphones, tablets, and web pages. Information is logically organized and what we call community-centric, focused in on residents, businesses, and visitors. Throughout the site, it uses quick links. This is to assist in finding information quickly, following the 3-click rule. You shouldn't have to click more than 3 times to find something. Using the plugin architect, we put a bunch of new features in, and also integrated our social media sites of Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and developed a content management strategy in order to keep the website updated consistently. Just an overall view of the strategy. We just started out a year ago developing a project plan for the website. And then our design team of Janet and Lynette and I went through the past year putting everything together. Kudos to Janet and Lynette, the effort that they put in, organizing some of the data, kind of revamping how we display things, and just all the effort that they put into it. Now that the site's ready for public, we're going to move on to the ongoing development part of it. Janet will maintain the overall site manager. Lynette will use her skills as staff training and site management. This is the content management piece of it. And I'll continue to do construction and development as new components are needed to be plugged into the site. I am going to turn it over to Janet now, and she's just going to review some of the areas of the site, some homepage elements, main navigation menu, some of the key features of the site, and just kind of go through a couple of departmental sites of community development and public works.
Okay, now don't let Jerry flee. He's the real computer guru here. Before we go forward and with our tour of the new website, we're going to take a step back and we're going to look at the current, or what we're going to be calling the old website. So take a look at it and you can see there's a lot of information right there on the front page, a lot of pictures, a lot of text. It's kind of hard for your eye to settle on one certain area. It makes it a little difficult when there's so much to look at, you just don't know where to start to find what you want. And we lead you to the news site. This is it. We have a lot of white space. It's very clean looking, it's very condensed, it's very organized, and we are following the 3-click rule here. You're going to be able to find whatever it is you're looking for within 3 clicks. You're not going to have to keep going and going and going. And we have a lot built into the website to show you how to do this. Let's talk about the home page elements. Your home page is where everything is going to start. When somebody goes in and plugs in www.burr-ridge.gov, this is what they're going to get first. This is what they're going to see. Now, on every page of the website, there will be the village logo, Burr Ridge. It's a very special place. Then across from left to right, the black panel across the top, that's the main navigation panel. That's where everything is more about the Burr Ridge community. It's very centric, whether you're a resident, a business, or maybe you're a visitor and you don't know anything about Burr Ridge, but you'd like to find out more. That's where you're going to start from, is that cross navigation panel at the top. Now off to the side, the brown buttons there, those are the links to the specific department sites. Somebody who knows a little bit more might be looking for a little bit more specific information. Administration, community development, finance, police, public works. They all have their own specific areas and their own specific documents, information, and quick links that are going to be underneath them. Now, go down to the footer here and there's basic information on the village hall, address, phone number, police department, public works as well, and an email that's kind of a contact us directly to the village. Now what we've also done here too, on the bottom you can see the icons to social media, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into it, the Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, which have become a little bit more important in these days. The text that's underneath the picture of the village hall, that's called a message ticker, kind of like a ticker tape. That's going to be ongoing and moving all the time. We can add whatever we'd like to, whatever is going on with the village at the time, whether it's emergency information, events, meetings, and that will scroll across the bottom underneath that picture all the time. Where the picture of the village is, that's also a customizable slideshow, so we can constantly add, take away, we can change it whenever we'd like to based on what's going on around the village, time of year, what we're doing. And then the village quick links. The quick links that we keep referring to, these are the most important things that we feel people are going to look for right away. Now, that's based on discussions that we had with the front office personnel. They get the calls of people coming in, department heads, and people that work right in there that know what the residents, businesses, contractors call for the information that they need. Those are the quick links. You can see what they are. At the side might be local happenings. Maybe they want to put in a service request. Where do they find that? It's right there. A calendar of the village. How do I pay my water bill? There's utility billing, emergency information. Maybe it's a reverse code red 911 or something, or they heard there's a water main break. They can go right there and find it right away. So the quick links are what we consider to be the most important information right away. Now up at the top, the search button. You can put in anything at any time to search for, and it will pull up across the pages, the navigation bar, and even the departments. And every hit on whatever you've put in will come into the center text, and you'll see that a little bit further down the road. Now, as Jerry said, this website is a responsive site, which means it automatically formats to whatever device you're using to bring it up. If you look on the left, that's what the site would look like if you had brought up on a smartphone. Over to the far right, that would be a tablet or an iPad or maybe a laptop. What it does is it changes the site, but it does not change the content. It just makes it easier for you to read based on what you're using. Now in the middle, this would be an example of something where you can create your own website app or shortcut for getting onto this as well. Take a picture, put something onto your media, and there's your shortcut right away to the website. Now this is the main navigation board across the top in black, and what we've done is take the drop downs of each area that people are interested in the most. For example, in village boards, you'd go down, there's the mayor and trustees page, would have all of your lovely photos in there, your information, vision and strategic goals, plan commission, zoning board, advisory bodies, and the calendar right there. If the residents, say a resident goes online, wants to find information, how do I find out about garbage and recycling? I want to put in a service request for something. There it is. What types of transportation do we have available within the village? PACE, where's the train information? Where's all that? Underneath resident services. If you're a new business or an old business and you want some information, there's our link to the economic development plans of the village, the business listing of all the over 500 businesses in Burr Ridge, and also an explanation of the places of eating tax and how that factors into the village and what we do with it. Let's say you're a visitor and you don't know anything about Burr Ridge. Where is it? What kind of hotels do we have? Restaurants? Shopping? We did put in the See You Downtown video that was shot in 2013. Information about shops of the Burr Ridge Village Center and County Line Shopping Square so people can see what we have to offer, and of course, our history. How did we start out? And they can all see then how far we have come in Burr Ridge. General information. Frequently asked questions. These are questions that people are constantly calling in, say the front office and asking. So we've kind of broken those down. That breaks out even a little bit further, but still following the 3-click rule. You're not going to have to work very hard to find that information. Legal notices on what we have to post. Links. These links right here underneath general information go out to local, state, and federal information. For example, who our representatives are, the county election boards, that type of thing. Those go out a little bit further outside of Burr Ridge. Now, there's a survey box here as well, which we've set up so that we can develop that to get more information and feedback from residents and businesses. We can set this up to do any kind of survey we'd like, whether it's the resident survey or the business survey, or maybe a survey on how are we doing with our service requests. What did you think of this last event? What can we do differently? We can get more feedback this way. The transparency page at the bottom, that's something that we do just to show that Burr Ridge is completely transparent in everything that we're doing. We have archival documents on all the different areas and the navigation areas at the top. The reason that we did this is to put all the transparency documents into one place so that we don't clutter up the document center and the links where people will be linked to looking for their information. That'll make a little bit more sense when I get to the document center. There's all the events, just in case you're wondering where they are and when they are. Armed Forces Day, Car Show. For example, there's something called a content management page underneath the car show. They can go right on, register online. It will come directly to me, and I'll be able to register them. Concerts on the Green, you can look up the details of the concerts on the Green, find out exactly what band is playing that night. So whatever the information is on the events, click on one of these and you'll have all the detailed information that you could want. Now here's the Document Center. This is just one of the neatest features that Jerry had found. This is the main repository, or library, if you will, of all the website information and documents linked all the way throughout. So whether you're in the navigation panel at the top, or the search button, quick links on the front page, or maybe the buttons for the individual departments, it's all going to link back to the Document Center. You can look for anything 3 different ways: through the pages, the folders, or searching the Document Center. We can load any type of PDF picture into the media library, anything we want to, and get it into the Document Center. What we've done on these documents as well, whether it's, for example, Administrator's Weekly Memo, we have gone back to 2014 and 2015, and we'll keep putting that in. Everything else is archived in the transparency page. That way, it's not cluttered up so much. People can find what they're looking for. Most likely, it's going to be within the past 2 years. Another feature of the quick links that we have, not only are they featured on the home page, but they're all throughout the site. For example, on the side panels for each of the departments, there's the Public Works. If you clicked on the Public Works button, you're going to see right away their quick links: engineering, forestry and grounds, operations, and so on. This is just another way to try to keep all the documents and all the information a little bit better organized for people so that they can see what they're looking for. Same thing with the police department. The weekly police report, the services they offer, accident reports, comments and complaints, annual reports. They're all right there, organized a little bit better under each department. Now the village quick links at the top, same thing. It just happens to be on the home page. One of the newest features that I've mentioned before, and this is where I'll explain it a little bit more, the search field. That's in the upper right. Right now it says permits. When you put something into that search field box, it's going to pull everything about what you put in there into the center reading area. Every hit, just as if you put something into Google, it's like the Google of our web page. You put it into search and it's going to pull it up. It's going to find everything. So if you don't know where to start to look for something, you can start right there in the search box, and it will get you there. The newest features that we talked about having to do with the icons at the bottom of the page, the Facebook, so we have news and events posted all the time around the village, Twitter, short messages for whoever's following us on Twitter, and the YouTube channel, which has become more important because not only do we have the Village Bulletin Board, which is our cable network on Channel 6 and Channel 99 on there, but that's now how we're documenting and making available any of the village board meetings. So if somebody wanted to go back and watch a village board meeting, find out when something was done or voted upon, they could go into the YouTube icon, click on it, and a whole level panel of all the different board meetings are there to select from. They can select whatever they want. Over to the left, you can see where there's the Facebook page. That's what it looks like when you pull it up. Right beneath that would be a Twitter page if you happen to follow on Twitter. And then those are just little messages as they go. Now this is a really neat feature that we're excited about. This is the interactive calendar. Now let's say, first of all, you can pick the month that you want to look at and see what's going on. There's your custom date selection. You can go forward and you can go backward. And then let's say you're going to look around within this and pick something. You can see all the meetings that are here, all the commissions, but let's say you want to find out where Armed Forces is. Hover over it just a little bit, and you're going to see just a little bit of the basic information, when it is, where it is, and the time. But then, if you click on it, you're going to get more specific information right here up at the top. You're going to get all the information about it, when, where, who to contact, even a Google map that shows exactly where it is. And a neat little feature about this too, if you wanted to go ahead and add this to your personal calendar by the SSR feed up here, you can either add the specific event, meeting, whatever it happens to be, or go back to the calendar and add the whole month page to your personal calendar on Outlook. So you can do it either way, either by the month or by the event, meeting, whatever it is you want to find the information about. We love this calendar because it's really going to keep people informed if they want to find out what's going on the website at any time. Now, this is the Geographic Information System. This is a very key mapping and data system that is maintained by Public Works. It's been upgraded and it's been linked to the new site very easily, not buried at all. Not only is it on the home page quick links, but it's also right there underneath the Public Works quick links. This is very important for Public Works when they're doing things, and also for various contractors working within the village when they need to get information. Right there, easily accessible. The other new feature that we talked a little bit about were the contact forms. They call it a contact form. You can also use it as a survey and feedback form. They're customizable. We can put in there anything we want. Enrollment, say, for e-briefs, the transparency requests in case somebody would want, say, a FOIA form or some information. They put it right there and it will automatically be sent to the person within administration that deals with that, so they get it right away, including the service requests, which is very important. Those will go right away, entered into the system, and printed out for someone. They can review them and start working on them. And like I said before, this is also what we can use to do the surveys, ongoing surveys. Let's say, for example, that you want to go over to any of the side panels. We're going to take community development as an example. As you can see, over to the right side of the community development tab, there's all the staff, their contact information. In the center, a description of what they do and what their purpose is. And then over to the left, probably the most important quick links for them, the most important information in their departments that people are looking for. And we found what these were by talking to the department heads and people within the departments. And this is what they told us as far as feedback that they thought was the most important. A resident comes in and says, I want to build a deck, I want to build a pool. Well, then they need to go under the quick links for building permits. And there they are. There's all the building ordinances. They can get their reports, schedule an inspection. What kind of permit is it? Commercial, residential? Do they want to do a fence? Do they want to build a pool? It's all right there. If they were to click on that, that's going to bring the permit right up. Fill it out, send it in, they're good to go. Now, at the very bottom of each of those departmental areas, there's also another link that says return to whichever department you're in, and that will take you right back to the beginning of that department. Now, let's say that they clicked on residential. It's going to go even further, a little bit more. You're still within the 3-click rule, but it's going to go a little bit further into the information that you might need to know. For example, here's Public Works. Staff on the side, description, and even a map in this case, because Public Works is separated from the Village Hall and the Police Department. People always say, well, where the heck is that? We just made it easier. It's right there. There's a map, so they can find it. Let's say, for example, they're looking for something, maybe emerald ash borer. Well, they're going to go into the quick links, see the forestry and grounds quick link, click on it. There's everything underneath forestry and grounds. There's emerald ash borer, and all the information that Public Works has researched and put out there about that through the years, whether it's picture or how to do it, what we're doing to combat that is right there. So they can click a little further. Just depends on how deep they want to go. And of course, back to the center page. And that's how that works for every single department on the left, and in a sense, the navigation panel across the top. What we wanted with this website design was not only to make it a new site, kind of update it, a lot more white space, more pleasing to the eye, a lot less cluttered. We wanted to keep it clean, but we wanted to make sure that this website is fluid and it's flexible. And we're doing that because it was designed in-house, it was built in-house. There's no consulting services that we ever have to bring in on this. We can maintain it ourselves. So as the need changes for what the website should say, we can do it ourselves. No one else has to do it. And within the departments, there will be 1 or 2 people that will be trained to go onto what we call the dashboard. That's more than you want to know as far as computer programming, but even that is very easy for that one person to learn how to go in and maintain their pages that relate to their department. Now, we're hoping that we can roll out this site by Friday. We're just going to be tweaking it all week long, making sure that our links match up, making sure that everything is current, whether it's, you know, we've gone through phone numbers, we've gone through data, but there's always a last-minute check on everything before we flip that switch, out with the old, in with the new, and that will be it. Is there any questions for us?
Questions of the board?
Congratulations. I think it looks fantastic, very user-friendly, and I myself look forward to going through the site. Thank you.
And if I may, I've built several websites myself. Well done.
Yes.
Well done.
Actually, I would concur. That website looks phenomenal. Matter of fact, and this was almost like a little training program for it.
Right.
I might even recommend that we use this portion of the video, of your presentation, to make that available to introduce people to it, and to because you've already done the voiceover for it.
Can we put that on Channel 6?
Put it on YouTube.
It's pretty intuitive. I don't think it's going to take a lot of training. It's extremely intuitive.
We could have gone even more into the clicks, and you go down and get more information. But you know, Jerry's thought was that we should definitely do it as a PowerPoint presentation because the website sometimes takes too long to cycle. But these snapshots are automatic for tonight to get you through it.
Trustee Francis?
Yes, thank you. Congratulations, Janet, Jerry, and Lynette. Appreciate the hard work and effort that went into this. It looks great. One quick question on the search feature. Are the PDF documents, are they searchable?
I believe so. Everything in there, the documents and the names and what is inside the document. It'll pull up a hit inside the document.
Okay, so if I search fence height, it'll take me to the ordinance.
Yep.
Thank you.
Jerry, I have one question for you. Just coincidentally, today we have 2 WordPress sites that were hacked into because it is no open source coding. It's the most common one out there. What type of security levels and have you foresaw for this? Have you entertained for this?
Yeah. First and foremost, we have the village's security, the firewalls, server protections, antivirus. Once you belong to the WordPress community, and there just recently there was a couple of vulnerabilities, and we got notification right away that if you're using this plugin of this version, you better update it or get rid of it. So, the community really that's part of the open source. Everybody, shares and, brings to your attention if there's vulnerabilities. Yeah.
Yes. Well, kudos to you and your team. Congratulations. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Mickey?
I'm sorry?
Just reiterate what the other trustees say. The website looks great. I think it adds to transparency. The one thing I hope we won't have rollout problems like other people have had when they try to roll out a new website. Otherwise, everything looks great. My compliments.
No, I don't believe so. I mean, it's already built, it's ready to go. As was mentioned, there's a couple of
some testing this week to make
some
sure.
Testing. But two things I want to mention. Number one is that, this is fluid, as I mentioned. We can make adjustments. We can add things, like we go to a committee like the Stormwater Committee did last time, and they suggested we add some things to the website. Those are simple things that now we can do. And so when you see things, when you think of things, just ask and we'll put it on. If residents were watching and they're looking for something and they can't find it or we don't have it, call us. We can add that. We have a section now on transparency. Obviously, I know the village board's concerned about that. We are too. We want to make sure that we are providing information. Sometimes too much information is, too much. But if people feel that there's a need for certain types of things, we'll try to provide it. Lastly, again, I want to recognize Jerry and his team, Lynette, who couldn't be here tonight. She's on vacation, and Janet, for all the hard work that they put into this project.
Thank you.
Job
Thank
well
you.
done.
Thank you, Jerry.
Sure.
I suggest that something like this be, so the residents are aware that this is all available. There's a lot of people that aren't aware of that this is available. Maybe in our newsletter or something, to get in contact with people that don't necessarily use the website.
Right.
Encourage them to look into it.
Excellent. Well, I hope, hopefully the reporter here today will give us a little plug for the website and get the, maybe even do a little feature article for it. What do you think? Under considerations, 8C, consideration of recommendation to approve amendments to the employee recognition program.
Yeah, we talked about this briefly at last week when we were talking about employees' salaries, and this is something we really need to talk about in open session, but did I lose it here? There we are. You saw our recommendation. We've spoke to the department heads about this issue. We're really not in favor as we talk about recognizing our employees. Like tonight, we're able to bring forth some employees who worked on a very important project. And I think from what I gathered, what we're trying to do is just expose some of our employees to you and to the public to get people to know who these people are that are behind the scenes doing all the work. And you know, this is kind of the thing that we would propose as opposed to a simple employee of the month, employee of the year type award, which, as we discussed, we really didn't think would fit in well with our small organization. So what we are recommending is that we bring employees to the board for recognition for the following reasons: on their 20th, 25th, 30th, and 35th anniversary, when an employee accomplishes a special task, for example, a police officer making an important arrest, Public Works administrative employee singled out by residents of the department. I attached an example of what recently happened in the Public Works Department, where two guys took the bull by the horn, said, you know what, we think we can fix the problem over there with the imbalance of the, I guess, the sinking of the concrete, and instead of having to hire a contractor, they were able to make some improvements to fix that on their own, and I think that's a good example of the kind of thing we should be able to bring forward to the board and to the residents. And then also when a team task is completed or a milestone is reached, for example, the rebuild of the website, completion of our water main replacement program. We just started our water main repair in-house. We just pick a number, 100th water main, and recognize those guys that are out there doing that type of work. We have several committees, like our wellness committee and our safety committee, you know, who spend some time, and when certain milestones are reached, we'd like to recognize them. And again, we're not looking to see or create any kind of contest. But what we would like to do is you know, bring those employees to you for recognition. And I'm hoping that the changes that I had proposed would be acceptable and that you would approve them. We're happy to answer any questions.
No, I think that's reasonable. Good idea.
Just a comment, I think it's a great idea to recognize our employees. They're really the employees of the residents here in the village, and they work tirelessly behind the scenes. Really there's only interface is when there's either a compliment paid by a resident or a problem addressed by a resident, and I think it's good to get the good news out in front on TV, in front of the residents, so they all can see what hardworking, dedicated employees we're fortunate to have.
Anyone else?
Just need a motion to approve.
Okay. I have a motion to approve 8C, consideration of recommendation to approve amendments to the employee recognition program.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Ruzak?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Grasso?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Bolus?
Yes.
5-0.
Thank you very much. And great idea, Steve. Under other considerations for announcement and deliberation and or discussion, no official action will be taken. topics on that subject?
I just want to mention I was downtown this morning with the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference. I don't know if you saw us on TV, but if you go to the website, we're on all the stations, CBS, ABC, WGN, talking about LGDF and the concerns that municipalities have with that issue. I think we had a real good turnout of mayors and administrators, managers. We got some real good press on that issue.
Good.
Obviously, we're not trying in any way to be in opposition to the governor. There's a lot of good things the governor is proposing, but obviously there's two concerns that we have: LGDF, well, especially LGDF, and we wanted to make our feelings known to the public. And I think we got the message across.
Please define that acronym for the residents.
LGDF, Local Government Distributive Fund. That is the village's portion or municipality's portion of the state income tax. And the governor is proposing to take 50% of that away from municipalities. To Burr Ridge, that would represent over $500,000, between 6 and 7% of our operating budget. It would be really difficult, not devastating, not only for Burr Ridge, but for all municipalities.
Has there been any further discussion on using hotel motel funds in the general fund yet?
That's something we continually push. The mayor and I sent a letter to our state representatives pushing that again, that same issue, being able to do what home rule communities can do and using those dollars for any purpose. It's hopefully something that ultimately will come out of the mix. I think one of the concerns we discussed today at the press conference was the fact that we still have yet to see, and we figured this would be the case, but here it is May already, and we still haven't seen any legislation in terms of how he's going to balance the budget, how it's going to work, and what's the quid pro quo if he's going to take money away from municipalities. What are they going to provide to us in terms of relief in terms of unfunded mandates, or things like you just mentioned, like the hotel motel tax, which would be critical to a community like Burr Ridge. So we're waiting, and the clock's ticking.
And there may in fact be some trade-offs like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's the case. So, thank you, Steve, for that. Anyone else? Okay, back to the audience portion. Anyone from the audience would like to address the board? Alice?
Good evening. My name is Alice Krampitz, 7515 Drew, and I'm also here on behalf of Mark Toma, who couldn't attend tonight, 7515 Drew. We're concerned about the salary of the position of the village administrator, and Mark's left me some notes here to share. Observing the operations of our village, we've seen some very disturbing issues. One issue that stands out was the handling of our inaccurate water meters. This was a known problem for over 20 years, but rather than taking a proactive posture, our village administrator kind of let it fester until the usable life of these meters expired and were replaced. And in doing so, some of our residents have seen some outrageous corrections on their water bills, and there has also been some lost revenue for the village. The problem could have been avoided entirely much earlier, and possibly by doing an annual inside meter reading. Secondly, at an economic development meeting, we were shocked to hear that the village lost $2 million of revenue due to businesses leaving. And our administrator stated that he was unaware of this until after the fact. And it seems to me that someone in this position should have their finger on the pulse of the vital lifeline of our community. We're also very baffled by the way our village administrator treated Mr. White, a volunteer of the Police Pension Fund Committee. Mr. White, who was extremely qualified, was kind of brutally and viciously attacked by our village administrator for offering his recommendations regarding the police pension. We thought this was very unprofessional. The salary and the benefits for the position in Burr Ridge happen to be very high compared to other villages and towns with 10,000 residents and similarly sized budgets. The salary has substantially increased in the last few years. It is for these reasons that we feel our village administrator's performance, as well as the looming state budget cuts and changes in state legislation, does not warrant a pay increase at this time. There's also a bigger issue here. I believe that what the Village Board of Trustees should be really considering is to put a cap on the salary for this particular position. The job description hasn't really changed much, and we question, does a person making approximately $175,000 a year plus a car, an expense account, really need a cost of living raise? Capping salaries is not uncommon, and I hope that you would consider that this evening. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Dolores?
Well, I'd like to talk a few minutes about the IMET. But before I do that, I want to call your attention to item 8C.
Dolores, could you do me a favor? Can you just put the microphone down a little bit so we can hear you better?
Yes, where you were talking about the amendments to the employee recognition program. I forgot to mention earlier that in reviewing the minutes of the budget workshop of March 9th, it referred to a biannual recognition dinner. Now, biannual means twice a year. I think what they meant to say was biennial, which is once every 2 years. And I suggest that you go back and look at those minutes and correct that, because there's quite a difference between twice a year and once every 2 years. Now, I'm sure that many of you have been reading the articles in the Tribune about the Illinois Metropolitan Investment Fund, which has lost over $50 million. But I don't think that most of you realize that this fund is operated or managed, and I use that word very loosely, is managed by an 8-member board. 6 of the members are finance directors, and 2 of them are village administrators. The chairman is the village administrator from Frankfurt. The vice chairman is the superintendent of finance and personnel of the Geneva Park District. The treasurer is the finance director of Bloomingdale. The secretary, finance director of Manuka. And the other board members, 2 finance directors, one from St. Charles, one from Buffalo Grove. There's a village manager from Clarendon Hills, and a finance director and administrator from South Suburban Mayors Managers Association. Now, there was an article in the Tribune on April 17th pertaining to this problem, and this fund has lost almost $180 million. And they are hoping to recoup most of this money by the sale of a hotel in Peoria, which is called, let me see, 4 Points Sheraton. But it was closed for renovations and did not reopen. What is interesting here is that the Federal Small Business Administration has filed a lawsuit saying that they take precedence over this suit against the Florida man because this is the U.S. Small Business Administration signed off on this loan. So at the moment, it looks like these government entities are not going to recover very much in the way of funds. And the reason that I bring this up tonight, and I'll give this to each of you, what I find extremely disturbing is that 6 of the 8 board members, 3/4 of the board, are involved in finance. Where was the oversight of this board? I want to publicly commend Burr Ridge Finance Director Jerry Sapp that the village's funds were not invested in this fund. Thank you.
Thank Thank you, Gloris. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board this time? Oh.
Conrad Fielkowski, 110 Waterside Place. I've attended a lot of village meetings. I've lived in the village about 20 years. You see me in this room often. The treatment of Tom White is unforgettable. I sat here in those meetings and watched a man be ground into the dirt because he disagreed with the village administrator. And I think it is something that should not happen in this village ever again. And also the man was told that he is supposed to be a representative of the administration, when in fact, I believe when a citizen volunteers, whether it's as a trustee or as a member of the committee, they bring with them their own experiences and their own opinion and their own knowledge to bear on a given issue, and are not there to represent the village management. Thank you.
Thank you. Marty?
I'm still the same person I was when I talked earlier. Do I have to go through that again? I believe in institutional memory. And I believe it is very important to retain people who have been in the institution for a long time. I always oppose term limits for that reason. Now, Len has got a lot of institutional memory. Al has got a lot of institutional memory, and so does the village administrator. But the village administrator is your day in, day out working with all of these problems. And I think that we need to take into account the value that institutional memory represents. And you have him walk away, or under any circumstances whatsoever, replacing him will be extremely difficult. Now, I argued against term limits with someone named Aristotle when I was at Notre Dame a long time ago. And I got an A on the report. I was very surprised. But at any rate, I argued against having term limits on the President of the United States. I'm having some second thoughts, lately when I see, why would anyone want to have a third term in that office? But tonight, that was a joke, incidentally. You're supposed to laugh. But the other thing I would mention is, Steve and I are not drinking buddies or anything else like that, but he knows his stuff, he speaks his mind, and it's hard to speak your mind when, the people are out with the picks and shovels to tear up what you're trying to accomplish. And don't sell institutional memory short. My friend Dolores has an institutional memory, and she's just a citizen. She was very involved. And those of you who know me know that I refer to her as the Iron Lady of Burr Ridge. I respect her, and I like her, whether she likes me or not.
Well, thank you, Marty. Marty Gleason, thank you. Anyone else like to address the board this time? Any reports and communications from village officials? Mr. Al Paveza?
Just a comment. We have people from the audience come up to address the board, and they give us their opinion, and believe it or not, we do take it seriously. We do check it out. If there's some of the stuff that they bring up, we've already looked into, and we just, rather than going back and forth when they make their comment, we know they don't have all the information. But the one thing that always amazes me, everybody that addresses the board is 98% negative, and yet Burr Ridge is one of the best run suburbs. We get positive accolades not only from residents but from outside of Burr Ridge, but that is never mentioned. That's the only comment I wanted to make.
Any other village officials?
I'd just like to mention Armed Forces Day, May 16th at 10 a.m. Hopefully we'll have another fabulous program. We're working on it. Janet's working real hard on everything, and we're tying up all the little things right now.
Other flyby?
No.
I noticed you got some pictures of the memorial on the website now too.
Yes.
That's very pronounced. Excellent. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be going into closed session now. I thank you for joining us, but I'm going to ask for a motion to go into closed session to discuss the following. A, approval of closed session minutes of April 13th, 2015. B, compensation and performance of a specific employee, village administrator, an annual evaluation. And C, as of we added this afternoon, employment of employee. May I have a motion to go into go into closed session?
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Grasso?
Yes.
Trustee Ruzak?
Yes.
Trustee Bolus?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
5-0.
The meeting is officially going into closed session. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Glenn?